Today I want to do things a little bit different. I have preached hundreds of sermons. So today I'm not going to preach one. Just decided I've decided I'm not going to preach today. This morning I want to take things in a different direction altogether. I don't want to preach a message. I want to just tell a story. That's all I want to do this morning is tell a story. During our school years, remember some of you not too long ago, you just graduated. But everybody in here can think back. During our school years, there's a ritual that's passed from one generation down to the next generation. A boy or a girl will develop a crush on the other one. Everybody's remembering. There's those smiles. Everybody remembers. A boy or a girl will develop a crush on the other one and eventually muster up enough courage to ask if they feel the same way about them. Now, it's not a lot of courage. It's just enough courage to at least ask in the form of a note. You guys remember these days? Yeah, I'm going to ask you in the form of a note. That's the level of courage I have risen to. I want to find out if you like me too, and I'm going to take it up to this level here. I'm going to ask in the form of a note. The note is passed down on a piece of notebook paper through a group of children until it finally reaches that intended person. The person that you want that note to end up with, it finally arrives at that person. The letter is a very simple letter, and it gets straight to the point. It says, "Do you like me? Check yes or no." Remember the note? You remember the agony the time that it took you to write the note? You remember that? Check yes or no. You guys remember that, right? The title of my message today is simply that. Now that little note that you pass in school, you remember the note? It's not exactly a binding contract by any means. But it does let you know if the person that you've chosen to pursue a relationship has ever actually chosen you or not also. This was the design of the note. Let's pass it down and find out if we have something we can pursue here. Today I want to deliver a message to you in a little bit different style. And this message is about God's love and his love for mankind. But I want to tell you the gospel story in a way that will hopefully hit us all right between the eyes. I don't want to preach a message to you, I just want to tell the story in a different way. Over the past few weeks, we have had people get saved both in the services and between services. We've had people that were saved at the end of the previous year. We've had people that have finally reached the relationship with Christ. They are now in a relationship with Christ, and it just happened, and I'm very happy about that. But we also have people that have been saved for many, many years already. And whether you've been a Christian for years or you just recently been saved, my prayer is that at the end of this message, we'll all understand what God's been up to for the entire time, through the whole period of time that mankind has been here. That's my prayer. I think about all of you throughout the week, all of you. And I think about you on an individual basis. Maybe you've been saved for a really long time, or maybe you just got saved. And your relationship with God just started and you're excited about it, but you really don't understand this book. So today I want to tell a story about this book. I want to tell the story in a different way. But hopefully by the end of it, we'll all understand what's going on. The Bible's a love story, but we often overlook some of the details. We overlook how the story unfolds. We sometimes get caught up on certain details and we miss the rest of the picture. You know, you think about the certain Bible stories in the Bible and we think of them as isolated events, but they're all part of a whole story. Every one of these events are part of a bigger story. So today I'd like to tell you about a specific story in the Bible, but the passage covers the entire Bible. Look at the title screen there. See the verse reference I used this morning? The Bible. That's the verse reference I'd like you to turn to. So you don't even have to open up the Bible this morning. I just want to tell you a story. So let's begin the story at the beginning. It seems like a decent place to start, so let's go ahead and start at the beginning. In the very beginning, on the sixth day of creation, God created mankind. Look at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 31. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. God and mankind had a very healthy relationship in the beginning. This is a good relationship. It wasn't just a good relationship, though. God said it was very good. Everything that he had made, including the relationship that he had with mankind, was very, very good. God supplied for mankind and loved them unconditionally. It was just God living with mankind in the Garden of Eden. That's how the whole story starts. A very good relationship between God and mankind. Try to think back to your first love. Everybody just go back there. You might have been 5 years old, but when you saw that other person, you knew it was forever. You remember that? Yeah, and usually it started with, she's kind of cute. That's where the whole relationship started. Yeah, I like them. I wonder if they like me. Now to write the contract. Check yes or no. You always look forward to talking with that person. Remember that relationship? You always look forward to talking with that person and you couldn't wait till you got to see them again. Do you remember that feeling? It was exciting. It was a really good feeling. That's what God and mankind had at the beginning. That's the relationship they had. But as all young relationships go, it has the potential of turning. Most of the time, people don't end up marrying their first crush. It's usually not how that goes down. Something happens, and all of us probably remember this from one side or the other, but this is what happens. Someone new walks into your life. Remember the first crush, and then that new person walked in the door? You remember that feeling? Yeah, I know you, but do you see that? That new person just shows up. In walks in what is often referred to as eye candy. Wow. That person just walked in the door, and I think everybody knows what I'm talking about here. You remember that fine specimen of a human being that walks in the door while you have this crush? Then they walk in. Remember that feeling? Yeah, some of you are smiling really big. Like, yeah, I know. It just happened. I'm having a really rough time with this. Yeah, you remember that feeling? They just walked in. All the girls, when they saw that person walk in, all you women, their eyelashes begin to bat, and they let out that little giggle. You know that? And guys, you're all smiling like, yeah, I know. But guys, hey, there's something happens to us too. We miraculously, our voice lowers. We now have a deep voice. And somewhere in the back of our head, we hear the Kool-Aid man going, oh yeah. You remember? Remember the feeling? Suddenly, the relationship that you were once enjoying is now being reconsidered. Now, yeah, somebody just walked in over here. I know about us, but did you see? Oh, yeah. And it seems like someone better has just come along. Now, let's go back to the story of God and mankind. Let's go back to the story here. Our relationship with God was perfect. And then sin walked in. And man, oh man, was it attractive. Oh yeah. Sin was attractive. Let's look at how Hebrews describes, just a little phrase in Hebrews just to kind of describe what sin looks like. Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 25. The passing pleasures of sin. Sin walks in and it looks good. We would never sin if it wasn't appealing, but sin is attractive. It is attractive. It makes us think that we could at least be happier if we would at least just check it out. I'd be happier if I just check out this new person that walked in. Sin walked into the picture and it started flirting with mankind. Now God's relationship with mankind has competition, and it is not good competition. But God's relationship with mankind has competition. Sin began to entice the very people whom God was in love with, and it knew exactly what it was doing. Look at James chapter 1 and verse 14. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Then when desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, brings forth death. God knew about this competition and he warned us about it. He warned us. God told us that sin was no good for us. It only wanted what it wanted. Stay away from that guy. He's no good for you. He's no good for you. It only wants what it wants. It doesn't have your best interest in mind. Stay away from that guy. He's only going to hurt you. But sin had a buddy. Sin had a friend. And his name was Satan. And he was more than happy to make the introduction. I want to introduce you to. Look at Genesis chapter 3 and verse 1. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, Has God indeed said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? Here's the classic move of downplaying the current relationship in order to steal somebody for yourself. Did that bully really tell you that you can't eat from all of these trees? Did he really tell you that? No, those of us that know the story know that's not what God said at all. He didn't say you can't eat from any of these trees, but that's how Satan formed the question. And the question demanded a defense, and that's exactly what happened. Look at verse 2 of Genesis chapter 3. And the woman said to the serpent, We may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, You shall not eat of it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Mankind immediately steps up and defends their current relationship with God. That's exciting to see. They stand up and they defend what God said. God is good to us. He warned us to stay away from that one tree. He didn't tell us we couldn't have all the rest of this. He told us to stay away from the one tree because he doesn't want us to die. He doesn't want to be separated from us. He loves us. This is a good relationship that mankind and God have. Then Satan takes on the role of the one who truly cares. Oh no. Did he really say that to you? Did he really tell you that? You see, I'm afraid he's not telling you the whole truth. Look at what he says in verse 4 of chapter 3. Then the serpent said to the woman, You will not surely die. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be open and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Sin has devised a plan to get mankind to second guess their relationship with God. And with this little bit of deception, it's as if sin passed down a note through Satan. Would you give this note to them for me? Just pass this note down to them for me. And Satan stuck that note on a forbidden tree. And the note was simple. Do you like me? Check yes or no. That's all it says. It's just an offer. Mankind was faced with a decision. Do they choose to have a relationship with sin, that attractive new guy that just walked in? Or do they choose to stay with God? And here's where our story takes a really bad turn. Look at Genesis 3, verse 6. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Sin offered to have a relationship with mankind. Sin offers to me, I want to have a relationship with you. And mankind reaches up and they check yes. Yes. We had found a new love interest. God had shown us the light of his love, but we chose another. Look at John 3, verse 19. And this is the condemnation, that the light has come into the world, and men loved darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. We chose sin over God. The new attractive person that walked in the room, we dumped a really good relationship. And we said, oh yeah, I want that one. And we checked yes. In most stories like this, the one who's abandoned is hurt, but eventually moves on. But this isn't like most stories. This story's completely different. You see, God was sincerely in love with us, and he knew the danger that awaited us if we stayed in this unhealthy relationship with sin. I truly do love you. I know you chose him instead of me, but I know that this is going to hurt you, and I really do care about you. It doesn't even matter to me as much as what you did to me, as much as what's going to happen to you if you stay in that unhealthy relationship. So he ran after us. God ran after mankind. He wasn't some desperate romantic. He wanted to protect us. He wanted us to be safe because he really did love us. He knew all about sin's intentions, and he didn't want us to go through that. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 24. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. Why is he so jealous? Because he truly loves us, and he truly wants what's best for us. He also knows that he's the only one that can provide that. So he started chasing us. For years, he sent messengers to remind us about his love for mankind. For years, he kept sending messengers to remind us how much he loves us. But mankind was still enjoying their temporary pleasures of the relationship they had with sin. And they silenced the messengers by putting them to death. But God wasn't willing to give up on us. Even after that, God wasn't willing to give up. He even selected a special group of people. He sent messengers, and we ended up killing the messengers. So God decides to up it a little bit, and he selects a specific group of people called the Israelites to get the message out to the world that he was sending a way to rescue them from the abusive relationship that they were in with sin. This group of people, I want you to let the whole world know there's a plan, and I'm going to get you out of that relationship. I know you chose him over me, but I know what he wants, and I'm going to get you out. So this one group of people, let the whole world know I'm setting up a plan to get you out of this relationship. He gave them types, shadows, and pictures to illustrate that plan. He performed miracles to show his love and his power. But instead of proclaiming the message of God's love for mankind, this group of people decided to make religion out of everything God gave them. They also chose to check yes on sin's offer to have a relationship. But even on this group of people, God wasn't willing to give up. Like, I'm not done yet. Look at 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 9. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some count slackness, but is long-suffering towards us, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Repentance is the act of turning back to God. Repentance is realizing that you were going the wrong way. You made the wrong choice, and then you make a U-turn. And that is what repentance is. But as much as God wanted us to return to him, he knew that there was now a bigger issue that needed to be addressed. A new problem has developed. You see, when mankind chose to walk away from God and have a relationship with sin, they got way in over their head. Way over their head. You see, sin owned a slave camp. owns a slave camp. And once mankind chose to enter into this relationship, there was no way out. God told them to stay away from sin because he knew about the operation that sin was running. And it could only end one way. Look at Romans chapter 6 and verse 23. For the wages of sin is death. You can have a relationship with sin, but you will die there. Stay away from him. He owns a slave camp, and I don't want that for you. So stay away. He's only going to hurt you. But we checked yes on the relationship. Mankind couldn't even buy their way out of this camp because they were slaves to sin. They couldn't earn enough to purchase their own freedom because the only wages they could receive was death. They were stuck. But God, I love this part of the story. I love those two words. But God decided to demonstrate his love. He came to where mankind was being held captive, and he entered into that camp in a brand new way. He made a personal appearance. Every person that was in sin's slave camp was there because they decided to check yes on sin's offer to have a relationship with them. Everybody's in this camp because you checked yes. But God walked in and never once checked the box. I refuse to check yes. I will not have a relationship with you. He never committed one sin. He walked onto sin's turf and never surrendered to its demands. But he showed up in sin's camp. He walked in. He showed up. Look at John 1, chapter 1 and verse 14. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. There was no way for us ever to get back to him. So he came to us and dwelt among us. He walked right in to sin's camp. And certain portions of mankind took notice. They just watched the relationship, which was in the very beginning, enter into their lost state. Mankind's first relationship just walked in to save them. Look at what the disciple John wrote about this. 1 John 1:1. That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked upon, and our hands have handled concerning the word of life. We saw him walk in. The relationship we had at the very beginning, we saw him walk in. We saw him with our own eyes. We touched him. We heard his voice. God came back for us. After we checked yes, he came back for us. He walked right into the middle of sin's camp. We saw him do it. We heard him with our own ears. We touched him with our hands. We saw him with our eyes. He physically walked into sin's camp. We were there. We saw it in person. We rejected him, but he never stopped loving us. So this is what he did. He wasn't under sin's debt. He never owed sin anything. But he made such a powerful display of love that day. He offered to pay what we owed in order to free us from that slavery. The price was death. There was no way for us ever to return to God. You see, if we died in our relationship with sin, there would never be any way to be reconciled to the relationship with God. You died in the relationship with sin, that's the end. There would be no way for us ever to get out. So Jesus Christ, God in the flesh, walks in with a game changer. He offered to take our place. God sent his only begotten Son to trade places with us. The innocent was going to die for the guilty. The one who loved us was going to lay down his life for those who rejected him. We walked away from the relationship. He did not. The innocent was going to die for the guilty. The one who was truly in love with us was going to die for those who had turned their back on him in the beginning. God wanted a relationship with us so much that he was willing to pay our sin debt, and wipe away the past. He was willing to start over. But what about what we did to you? I'm going to wipe it all away. Forget about it. I just want you out of that situation. And I'm willing to throw away everything, wipe it clean. As far as east is from west, I will wipe it clean. And we can begin again. We can start over. He came to demonstrate his love for us in the most incredible and selfless way possible. Look at Romans 5:8. But God demonstrates his own love towards us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. He entered sin's slave camp to pay for our freedom in full. There were certain people that clung on to their relationship with sin, though. They didn't want to let that go. And those people nailed Jesus to the cross. They ripped his beard from his face. They crushed a crown of thorns into his head. The bones in his body were pulled out of joint. And a spear was stuck through his side. This is the kind of relationship that he was trying to protect us from. This and separation from God is what sin had in mind for all of us. This is my plan for you. An abusive situation. Jesus Christ had died to save us from sin's captivity. Sin's debt was paid. Death. He paid the debt. It was death. But there's one little detail in this story which presents us with the twist that hell itself could not prevent. One little detail that nobody saw coming. Jesus did walk into the sin slave camp. He did walk in. He did lay down his life as a substitute for ours. And he did die that horrific death that sin required. But there's one thing he never did. He never checked yes on sin's offer. He never once checked yes. Therefore, his death was not bound by anything. You are not bound by a thing. Even the price he paid, even the death he died was not bound by anything at all. So 3 days later, after he paid our ransom, he rose from the grave with a brand new offer. Another offer. He offered to remove our sin-stained life and replace it with his own. He offered us the opportunity to be reconciled once again to God. I'm going to save you from this, and I want to bring you back to me. I want to save you. I want to reconcile you back to God. Look at what Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. Verse 20. Now then, we are ambassadors for Christ. As though God were pleading through us, we implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. For he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God in him. God came in the flesh and lived a perfect, sinless life. He walked into sin's camp where we were being held in captivity, and he paid our debt in full. And then, with his word, he left us a little note. Stuck it right to the cross. He left us a little note, and it's a simple note, but it offers us so much. And it says this: will you choose me? Check yes or no. It's the offer to walk away from our relationship with sin and be reconciled to God. It's an offer. And many people have accepted this offer. Look at what Paul says about these people in Romans 6:17. But God be thanked that though you were slaves of sin, yet you obeyed from the heart that form of doctrine to which you were delivered. You were in sin's slave camp. By the way, this is a verse, not a story that I'm telling right now. This is what Paul said actually happened. Though you were slaves of sin, you obeyed, and now you are delivered. This is the story of you and me. And even though I wrote this sermon as kind of a modern day parable, the details were very strongly based on a true story. Very strongly. Basically, I just told you a true story today with a little bit of a spin. Years ago, I understood what God did for me, and I checked the box yes on his offer. I understood that he paid this price for me, and I knew I was in slavery. I was in captivity to sin. And when I realized what God did for me, I went ahead and checked yes. Yes, God, I do want to be reconciled back. I want a relationship with you. But for years after that, I still felt unworthy to be loved by him. I felt like I needed to live some kind of perfect life in order to be accepted by him. Some of you in the room feel the same way or have felt the same way. And then I realized that this was the mindset of someone who was still in bondage. God didn't love me because I was perfect. He loved me because his love was perfect. He didn't chase after me because I was worth redeeming. He chased after me because his love is so strong that he couldn't do anything but offer me redemption. And when I realized that, I reached up and I checked yes. Yeah, I want to be saved. I want to be redeemed. I did choose this relationship, but I know where it's leading. And if you paid my price and loved me enough to chase me all these years, then yes, absolutely yes. Yes, I'll check yes. And then I never felt worthy enough to be loved by him, and I felt like I had to keep doing some religious requirements to make God happy. That's a relationship of bondage. Like, I'm not giving you a bunch of requirements. I just love you, and here's what I want you to do for me. What is it? Anything. Love me back. Love me back. Yeah, but what about everything I should do to make you happy? I'm happy that you checked yes. I'm happy that you walked away from him and came back to me. I'm happy. I'm happy. Don't I need to do something to make you happy? You did. But I'm not perfect. You never were. You never were. I didn't love you because you were perfect. I love you because my love is perfect. So I checked yes. And I realized because of Jesus Christ, not because of my own actions, but because of Jesus Christ, I was made accepted. Look at Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 6. To the praise of the glory of his grace, by which he made us accepted in the beloved. God knows that we're not perfect, but he loves us and has invited us to love him in return. We don't live for God or do things for him because we are under some kind of contract or obligation. He didn't bring us into bondage. He set us free. Understand what he did. He set you free. He didn't just save you from something. He saved you to something. We get to start over. And not based on a bunch of requirements, but based on, I can't get over the fact that he chased me down. I can't get over the fact that he went through all of that for a chance that I would say yes. I could have said no, and he knows that because love is a choice. But he gave me the choice to come back. I can't get over that. Why do you put offering in the offering plate? Because I want to be part of what he's doing. Do you do it because you have to? No, I don't have that relationship anymore. I don't have a bunch of things that I have to do. Nobody's barking orders at me. Why do you do it? Because I love him. I do it because I want to be part of what he's doing. Why do you go to church? Are you required to go to church? No. I actually go to church, and that's the one place that tells me I don't have to go to church. to have a relationship. Then why do you keep going? So I can learn more about him. I want to know his favorite color. I want to know what he likes to eat. I want to know how he wants to spend his time. I want to know details about him. Why do I go to church? Because I want to learn more about him. I want that relationship that he did not have to offer to me again, but he did. And I checked yes. So now somebody tell me his favorite color. Tell me what he wants for Christmas. Tell me more about what he likes. And tell me the things he doesn't like so I don't go there. Because I want to do everything I do out of my love for him. So why do we love him? Why do we live for God? It's real simple. 1 John 4:19. That's it right there. We love him because he first loved us. That's the whole story. What about religion? He erased that. I don't want religion. I don't want religion. I want relationship. I want relationship. It's not about religion. It's not about a list of demands. It's about relationship, and it has always been about relationship. This is our story. This is the story about how God stopped at nothing to be reconciled to his love, mankind. It's a true story. We have to understand that we can now live free in a loving relationship. You're free. Live free in a loving relationship, and we need to let others know about this God who would rather die than live without them. Let them know. He made an offer. This is the whole story. We walked away from him. He loved us so much that he pursued us in the middle of the relationship we chose, because he knows what's going to happen if we stayed there. He came in, he paid our debt, and he made us an offer, and it's a simple offer. It's not a lot. You don't have to do a lot to earn this. You don't have to do anything to earn this, because it's not based on your actions. It's based on what he did. He offered you salvation. And you're not getting salvation because you did something. You're good enough, so I'm going to save you. No, salvation doesn't come because of that. So what do I need to do to be saved? He made the offer so simple. Check yes or no. I paid the price. I did it all. I did everything. I want you to turn away from that relationship, and I want to be reconciled with you. The offer's simple. Check yes or no. I didn't want to preach a sermon to you today. I've preached enough sermons to you. I'll start again next week. Today I just want to tell you a story, because the truth is many of us have been saved for so long but never really understood what God was doing all this time. And some of you have just recently been saved, but I wanted you to understand what God's been doing all this time. The story is amazing. Grace is amazing. Remember, you are not under religious bondage. You are under a relationship who has offered you complete freedom to love him in return. He didn't love us because we were perfect. He loves us because his love is perfect. Thank God for God. Thank you for loving us enough to chase us down. You should have just walked away from us. We made our choice. He loves us just the way we are, but he also loves us too much to let us stay there. So he rescued us. Now, every day you wake up, I want you to think of this story right here. What's your favorite color, God? What would you like to do today, God? How can I spend time with you? Not make sure I get my chapter in or pray a certain amount of time, or don't. It's not religious requirements. I want to be with you all day long. When I make my decisions, I want to make them with you. Because I love you. I love you. Why do you love me? Because you love me. And I can't get over it. I checked yes. And now I want to live yes. All the way, all the time. Yes. And every single one of us, God has chosen a new group of people. A brand new group of people. It's no longer called the Israelites. He called together a new group of people. Guess what he calls us? His bride, his children, his love. Now this group of people that he set out there, make sure you let the world know he came on a rescue mission to save them too. It's not about church, not about Bible reading, it's not about prayer, it's not about how much you put in the offering plate, it's not about any of that. It's all about him. I checked yes, and I want to live yes, and I hope and pray that that is your goal also. Check yes or no. I checked yes, and I will live yes for the rest of my life. Stand with me this morning.